Welcome, dear viewers. Today we are breaking down the key events of April 2nd, 2026. There is a great deal of material to cover, so let us get straight to it. We open with the ongoing armed confrontation on Ukrainian soil, where both sides have not let up with large-scale strikes for several days running. We begin with Russian actions. According to Ukraine's Ministry of Defense, overnight and throughout April 2nd, Russia deployed approximately 172 unmanned aerial vehicles. That figure reflects the situation as of 8 o'clock in the morning on April 2nd, 2026. Later in the day, several dozen additional drones were also employed. Let us look at the geography of the strikes in more detail. We start in the south of the country, Odessa Oblast. A significant amount of video footage has emerged from there, capturing the aftermath of the overnight raid. The recordings show Ukrainian security forces working to bring the situation under control. Damaged warehouses and hangars are also clearly visible. Photographs published at dawn confirm that several structures, both utility and military in nature, sustained substantial damage as a result of the attack. Moving northeast, closer to the active combat zone, Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkiv oblasts, and what remains of the Donetsk region have also generated extensive video material. Perhaps the most striking footage is connected to the area around Pavlohrad. Local resources published images showing the aftermath of strikes attributed to Geran-type drones. A powerful explosion was captured on camera. According to available reports, the strike targeted the Pavlohrad chemical plant, which is believed to be used by the Ukrainian side to produce rocket fuel and drone propellant for attacks deep into Russian territory. Further east, the areas of Barvinkov, Nikopol, and Husarivka. Materials coming in from there indicate that during reconnaissance drone flights overnight into April the 2nd, Russian forces managed to locate electric trains, which were promptly struck. For the Ukrainian side, these are extremely painful losses. Maintaining reliable logistics and delivering supplies to the front line is already a serious challenge, and the destruction of rolling stock only compounds the problem. It is worth recalling that just a few days ago, we examined footage showing the Ukrainian side evacuating individual electric locomotives further to the northwest, deeper into the country. Those recordings were released on March 31st. They vividly illustrate Kiev's efforts to move key logistical assets out of reach of Russian armed forces. However, even these measures do not always help. As soon as equipment draws close enough to the front line, it is promptly identified and destroyed. All of this significantly hampers the supply of Ukrainian military units. In the area of the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration, a substantial number of strikes were recorded throughout the day. Authors of the relevant publications and pro-Russian sources claim the targets were temporary deployment sites of Ukrainian armed forces units. Kharkiv Oblast, strikes were noted in the vicinity of Zmiev. Video materials show a Geran-type drone striking an object of presumed military significance in the area of that settlement. In Kharkiv itself, high drone activity and numerous explosions were recorded throughout the day and night. Local sources published a photograph of a damaged railway carriage somewhere within the city. According to available information, strikes overnight and during April 2nd also targeted railway infrastructure, locomotives, electric trains, and individual carriages. This once again underscores that the Russian side is currently devoting primary attention to logistical infrastructure, rolling stock, containers, and associated facilities. Moving to the north of the country, in Chernihiv, a powerful explosion was recorded, with sources reporting the use of Iskander missiles. In Sumy Oblast, attacks were noted in the area of Bondari, where Geran-type drones damaged a building believed to be a storage facility. In Shostka, fires and other thermal anomalies were registered. What emerges from all of this is a fundamental difference in approach between the two sides. Russian strikes are becoming increasingly decentralized and are directed at small pinpoint targets: minor warehouses, hangars, individual railway carriages, and locomotives. This most likely indicates either that major targets are now reliably covered by Ukraine's air defense network, though that scenario seems unlikely, or that the bulk of significant infrastructure has already been put out of commission, and Russian forces have shifted to hunting down whatever smaller assets remain that are relevant to Ukrainian drone and missile production and logistical supply chains. The Ukrainian side operates in a fundamentally different way. Overnight into April 2nd, 160 drones were employed, along with 4 jet-powered unmanned vehicles. The primary target was the Novo Ufa oil refinery. Local sources published video footage showing thick black smoke rising above the energy infrastructure facility. Clear evidence of a successful strike and subsequent fire. The key distinction in Ukraine's approach is that Kyiv continues to strike large, strategically significant targets. This is not a reflection of differing priorities, but of practical reality. Since 2022, a vast number of large industrial, military, and infrastructure objects on Ukrainian territory have already been destroyed, and operations are now being conducted against progressively smaller targets. Russian territory, by contrast, is vastly larger and contains far more major facilities, meaning Ukrainian strikes are still at the very early stages of working through that target set. Summing up the past 36 hours, Russia deployed a combined total of 872 drones during this period. To recall, between March 31st and April 1st, 2026, 700 drones were used in 2 separate waves. The flight path map published the previous day covered the period from the evening of March 31st to 6 o'clock in the evening on April 1st, and clearly illustrated the enormous scale of drone employment. From the evening of April 1st through the morning of April 2nd, a further 172 vehicles were added to that tally. The total across 36 hours, 872 drones. In the wake of these events, Ukrainian President Zelensky stated that in light of the scale of destruction and the unrelenting strikes, there would be no Easter ceasefire. The Russian side also weighed in. Presidential foreign policy aide Ushakov remarked that Zelensky needs to urgently decide to withdraw Ukrainian forces from the Donetsk region. Only then, he suggested, would a window open for conflict resolution and progress on other outstanding issues. Kremlin spokesman Peskov, for his part, stated that talk of ceasefire terms is being used by Kyiv purely as a cover for regrouping and replenishing losses. In essence, the Russian side has from the outset taken the position of rejecting any ceasefire or temporary halt to hostilities. This means that in the coming days, the intensity of fighting will remain at its current level, with no reduction in activity expected around the 10th through 12th of April. We now turn to the front line itself. On the Sumy sector, the map configuration did not change over the past day, but Russian forces are actively pressing forward along 4 separate axes that we have already discussed previously. The Kharkiv sector of the front continues to shift, both yesterday and today. Comparing the current situation with how the map looked at the close of April 1st near Vovchansk, and to the south, the changes are evident. Russian units have, according to pro-Russian and neutral cartographers, significantly improved their positions in the area of Verkhnya Pisarivka. Control has been established along the Siversky Donets River, and overall the Russian army appears to have already prepared a bridgehead for further movement eastward toward the settlement of Bilyi Kolodyaz. Simultaneously, Russian units are consolidating positions in the area of Serebryansky Forest, a large woodland tract lying between Vovchansk and the far northeastern tip of Kharkiv Oblast. At present, Russian forces control roughly 10% of this forest and are continuing to press forward. On the eastern flank of the Kharkiv axis, adjustments are being recorded in the areas of Kolodezhne, Hrihorivka, and Olkovatka. Yesterday, pro-Russian analysts reported the beginning of an offensive on this stretch. Today, that information is being confirmed by neutral cartographers with further clarification on individual positions. Based on the general direction of movement, it can be assumed that Russian forces are focused on advancing toward Hrihorivka, Obukhivka, Novozhvanivka, as well as Kolodezhne, Mitrofanivka, Novovasilivka, and Petroivanivka. This is essentially a chain of settlements running along the road from Fiholivka northward to Hrihorivka. Most likely, securing this corridor is the immediate objective for Russian units to reach these populated localities and use them as a springboard for further movement aimed at enveloping Veliky Burluk from the southeast. This appears to be the operation currently unfolding. The Sloviansk sector, a fair amount of geolocations arrived from there today, but in terms of actual frontline movement, only minor advances are recorded near Holubivka and Pryvilin along Highway M03. Beyond that, activity is largely of a fire support nature. Russian units are striking Ukrainian logistics in the areas of Starodubivka and Piskunivka. It is through these routes that Ukrainian forces are moving reinforcements north of the Siversky Donets and sustaining the garrison in the area of Kriva Luka, which is precisely why they are being subjected to sustained fire. Kostyantynivka. The map in the city's central section continues to be revised, a process that has been ongoing for several days. Since March 29, 2026, changes have successively swept across the central, southwestern, and again central sectors. New video recordings are released daily, documenting the movement and advance of Russian units. As of today, a small pocket, a forming cauldron, is clearly visible in the southern part of Kostyantynivka. Given this configuration, it can be assumed that within the next few hours or overnight, the Ukrainian side will attempt to break out of the encirclement on the southern flank of the city. Taking stock of the cumulative geolocations, map updates, and video materials, it increasingly appears that a genuine turning point has been reached in the battle for Kostyantynivka, at least in its southern and southwestern parts. The Dobropilya axis, minor adjustments are recorded in the area of Beletske. The Russian infiltration zone is gradually expanding. Ukrainian positions in the area of Svitlo-Dovzhansk are being subjected to fire suppression, including airstrikes and glide bombs. Russian units are conducting an active offensive on this axis, seeking to break through Ukrainian defenses and push out onto the operational expanse of Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Finally, the Zaporizhzhia sector, which is generating the greatest volume of fresh reports today. On the western Zaporizhzhia axis, adjustments are being made on the basis of video materials published by the Ukrainian side, capturing strikes on Russian forward positions. The grey zone is reverting to Russian control. The headline news of the day, however, comes from the northern Zaporizhzhia axis, where back in February and March 2026, the Ukrainian side had been mounting active counter-offensive efforts. Today it has been reported that Russian forces have launched a counter-offensive aimed at recovering all territory lost during the February Ukrainian push. The map adjustments corroborate this. It is worth noting that what is happening is a return of grey zone territory, areas that various sources had marked as captured by Ukrainian forces up to the settlement of Uspenivka during February and March, though in the absence of video confirmation, their status was never definitively established and was regularly revised. Today, reports are emerging that Russian forces have begun pushing back in the opposite direction, and the grey zone is once again being shaded in the colors of Russian control. More geolocations and additional data would naturally be welcome, but the overall picture emerging from the latest reports suggests that the Russian army has indeed begun its spring offensive on selected sections of the front. In all likelihood, the pace of that offensive will only accelerate in the near term. Thank you to everyone watching. Subscribe to the channel, leave your likes, and take care.